After years of my manager taking credit for my hard work, she finally told me I wasn't cut out for the job. But instead of arguing, I made a bold promise. I'll leave on Friday, but Monday will be interesting. Watch to find out how I turned the tables and left her in shock, too late to do anything about it. You're just not cut out for this line of work, my manager told me one day. After years of watching her claim my ideas as her own, I didn't even bother to argue. I just said calmly, I'll be out of here by Friday. But Monday? That'll be interesting. She only rolled her eyes. By the time she caught on to what I meant, it was already too late. You're just not cut out for this job? Sophie repeated, leaning back into her fancy leather chair, a little smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. The Westridge Hotel project needs someone with a stronger hand at leading, she went on. I kept my face steady even though her words stung, sharp and familiar, echoing across the glass walls of her office. I could see a few coworkers sneaking glances our way, curious about the show unfolding. You mean the same Westridge Hotel project where my redesign saved the firm $300,000? I asked under my breath. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new and interesting stories. Put likes. But back to the story. Sophie just gave a lazy wave of her hand, brushing it off like it was nothing. My redesign, she said, like she was reciting some boring fact. I presented it to the board after I created it. That's your job, Patricia. You're here to support me, she sighed dramatically, like I was some child she had to scold. Listen, this isn't working out anymore. I need someone who knows where they stand in the pecking order. I nodded slowly, feeling an odd sort of calm settle over me, almost like the eye of a storm. I understand just fine, I told her. I'll be gone by Friday. But Monday's gonna be interesting. Sophie rolled her eyes again, always with the cryptic remarks. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm Patricia Martinez. I'm 49 years old, a senior project coordinator over at Carter Architecture and Design. I've spent the last 8 years coming up with creative solutions for our clients' toughest problems. My heart's in crafting spaces that aren't just beautiful, but smart too, all while sticking to a budget and still blowing expectations out of the water. What's standing in my way? That would be Sophie Smith. She's 41, my boss, and the youngest partner our firm's ever had. Sophie's real talent isn't designing, though. It's swooping in and snatching credit for other people's ideas. Mostly mine. Her meteoric rise through the company? Built squarely on my work and my back. And now, after all this time, she's decided it's time to push me out. Maybe I've gotten a little too loud about wanting proper credit. Maybe she's picked up on the fact that other folks are starting to notice what's been going on. Whatever the reason, she made her move. As I headed back to my desk, I passed by the main hallway lined with photos of all our big projects. The Westridge Hotel, the Pinecrest Community Center, the Lakeview Towers. I stopped for just a second. Every one of those plaques had Sophie's name on it as lead designer. Every one of them was a piece of my heart and soul. My phone buzzed. It was Ryan, one of our senior architects. How'd the meeting go? Sophie looked pretty pleased with herself. As expected, I typed back. She's pushing me out. That's insane. Your coastal restoration project just won an award, he replied. Her coastal restoration project, if you believe the press release, I muttered under my breath as I sat back down at my desk. I unlocked the bottom drawer and pulled out the external hard drive I kept hidden there, my insurance policy. Months ago, when Sophie's behavior shifted from stealing credit to flat-out erasing me, I started saving copies of everything. My original designs, emails, notes, all of it. Right then, my desk phone rang. It was Patricia from reception. Hey, Patricia. There's a guy from Morgan and Wells downstairs. Says he's here about a consultation you did for them, she said. I froze. I had never done any work for Morgan and Wells, and they just so happened to be our biggest competitor. Tell him I'll be right down, I said, my voice tight. As the elevator doors closed, a heavy feeling settled in my gut. This wasn't just about Sophie snatching my work anymore. Something bigger was going on. Something way worse than I had realized. I'd been in architecture and design for 27 years. I started out as a drafting assistant in New York, working long hours while raising my daughter alone. Project by project, I built up my portfolio, moving from small residential jobs to massive commercial builds, and eventually into the sustainable public spaces I'm proud to call my specialty. 8 years back, Carter Architecture and Design headhunted me from a smaller firm in Philadelphia. It felt like a dream at the time. Now, I'm waking up fast. The offer had been simple: a leadership role, creative freedom, and the backing to chase bold ideas and sustainable design. For the first 4 years, under our old creative director, I thrived. My coastal restoration project, community spaces built from salvage materials, tough enough to weather the worst storms, put our firm on the map. Then Sophie showed up. She started out as just another project manager, but it didn't take her long to cozy up to Ethan Carter, our aging founder. Sophie was smart about it too, laying on thick compliments, organizing long lunches, even inviting him up to her Catskills cabin on weekends. 18 months later, she was a partner, the youngest one the firm had ever seen. At first, I admired the hell out of her hustle. She was polished, sharp with clients, and always seemed genuinely interested in my designs. She'd swing by my desk, asking questions and offering feedback. I mistook it for mentorship, maybe even friendship. The red flags didn't pop up all at once. They crept in slow. First, it was the team presentations where my name somehow never came up. Then projects I'd kicked off mysteriously got reassigned, Sophie taking them over directly. In meetings, she'd interrupt me or spin my ideas around until they sounded like hers. Patricia had a nice starting point, she'd say, smiling sweetly. But I refined it into something practical. Ethan, who was half retired in his mind already, ate it up. So did the other partners, mostly old-school guys who loved Sophie's mix of bright ideas and just enough flattery to keep their egos happy. People around the office noticed too. Ryan, one of our senior architects, once leaned over during a meeting and muttered, "Did she just pitch your riverfront plan as her big innovation?" Even Emily at the front desk started quietly timestamping my designs before filing them, giving me these little knowing looks. I kept my head down, telling myself the quality of my work would shine through eventually. When we won the Regional Design Excellence Award for the Coastal Project, I thought, finally, they'll see. Instead, Sophie strutted onto that stage solo. Her speech didn't mention me once. That night, I started backing up everything: design drafts, email threads, notes, dating, and saving them. Not because I was ready to go to war, but because deep down, I needed the insurance. I see now that I was naive. Sophie wasn't just some lucky opportunist. She had a plan, and I'd been her biggest gold mine. And now, maybe her biggest liability. We settled into this uncomfortable rhythm. She took the credit. I did the work, quietly stewing but avoiding a fight. Until yesterday, Sophie asked for my full portfolio to archive it, she said. But the look in her eyes, like she already owned it, finally flipped a switch inside me. Now, standing in the lobby, a man in a sharp navy suit stuck out his hand. "Miss Martinez?" "Oscar Taylor, Morgan & Wells. Thanks for meeting with me." I shook his hand, confused. "I think there's been a mistake. I've never consulted for your firm." Oscar frowned. "That's odd. We were told the preliminary designs for the Seattle waterfront project came from you. Sophie Smith sent them over last month. Said you worked with her on the consultation." My stomach flipped. The Seattle waterfront, one of the biggest revitalization projects on the West Coast. I had sketched up some ideas for it late at night, just for fun. I never submitted them anywhere. "May I see them?" I asked, keeping my voice as calm as I could. Oscar pulled out his tablet and swiped through a set of designs that hit me like a punch to the gut. They were mine, tweaked here and there, but the bones, the whole heart of the project, was unmistakably mine. Elevated greenways, flexible public spaces that could survive seasonal floods, bridges connecting historic landmarks, every element I dreamed up. "These were presented to us as a joint initiative between your firm and ours," Oscar said, looking puzzled. "We were really impressed," he said. "In fact, we've already woven several of your ideas into our final proposal." The whole room seemed to tilt under my feet. Sophie hadn't just hijacked my work inside our firm. She'd been peddling my concepts to outside competitors too. "Who else has seen these designs?" I managed to ask. "Our entire executive team," he said. "And we've already presented them to the Seattle Development Commission." They were thrilled. He paused, narrowing his eyes like he was finally catching on that something wasn't right. "Is there a problem?" "I just need to double-check something with my office," I said, forcing a polite smile. "Would you excuse me?" I ducked into the restroom and leaned hard against the cool tile wall, trying to breathe. Sophie had stolen my personal sketches, probably snagged them off my computer when I wasn't looking, and then pitched them as some grand collaboration with Morgan & Wells. It wasn't just shady. It was a massive ethical breach. And then it hit me like a freight train. No wonder she'd been so eager to push me out. If those designs were moving forward with city officials, she needed me gone, out of sight, out of mind, before I uncovered what she'd done. My phone buzzed. A meeting invite flashed across the screen. All staff special announcement. 3 p.m. When I got back to my desk, the whole office was buzzing like a kicked beehive. People huddled in corners, talking in low voices, sneaking quick glances my way. Ryan swung by, dropping his voice. "Ethan's flying in for the meeting. Big news, something about a game-changing partnership with Morgan & Wells." I raised an eyebrow. "Seattle." His eyes widened. "How'd you know?" "Oscar Taylor is downstairs," I said quietly, "and he's got my designs for the Seattle waterfront." Ryan blinked, confused. "Wait, your designs?" "Sophie's been leading the Seattle project for months. That's what's getting her promoted to creative director." And just like that, the final puzzle piece snapped into place. Sophie wasn't just getting rid of me, she was setting herself up for a big, shiny new title, writing into it on my stolen work. I opened my email. A new message from HR popped up, cheerful and devastating all at once. Your transition package details. They weren't even waiting until Friday. Sophie had moved up my termination to today. My hand hovered over the drawer where I kept my external hard drive. Inside was everything. Original design files with timestamps, email threads, drafts, solid proof that every bit of Seattle was my work. Enough to blow this whole thing wide open. But then reality sank in. Would anyone even believe me? Sophie had spent years buttering up leadership, playing the game, while slowly cutting me off at the knees. To them, I was just the disgruntled employee on her way out. I shut the drawer without grabbing the drive. I needed time. A plan. Charging and guns blazing wasn't going to fix this. This wasn't just about stolen credit anymore. It was about ethics. Possibly lawsuits. Definitely my entire career. By the time 3 p.m. rolled around, the conference room was packed. I grabbed a seat near the back, ignoring the sideways looks and whispered conversations. Sophie stood at the front, practically glowing in her sharp navy suit, the one she always saved for big moments like this. Ethan Carter stood beside her, looking every bit the proud minner. Ethan cleared his throat. Today marks a bold new chapter for Carter Architecture and Design, he said. We're thrilled to announce a strategic partnership with Morgan & Wells for the Seattle waterfront revitalization. Behind him, the screen lit up, and there they were, my designs. Only now they had fancy logos slapped onto them, branding them as a joint masterpiece between our firm and Morgan & Wells. This collaboration, Ethan said, smiling warmly at Sophie, led by Sophie Smith, showcases the innovative spirit that defines our firm. Sophie stepped forward, beaming like a pageant queen. Thank you, Ethan, she said sweetly. This project is a true testament to sustainable urban renewal and community-first design. She clicked through the slides one by one. My sketches, my concepts, rattling off ideas I'd spent countless late nights dreaming up, acting like they were all hers. Every single click of that remote drove the knife in a little deeper. And then came the final blow. To lead this exciting new direction, Ethan said, turning to Sophie with a proud nod. Ethan stepped up to the front of the room, his voice full of fake excitement. I'm pleased to announce Sophie as our new creative director, effective immediately. The room broke into loud applause. Sophie accepted her promotion with that perfect, polished humility she'd mastered. She thanked Ethan for his mentorship, then her eyes found mine. Just for a second. There was a warning in her look, sharp and cold, before she turned back to the crowd, all smiles again. When the meeting ended, I made my way to Ethan, my heart pounding. Could I speak with you privately about the Seattle project? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Of course, Patricia, he said, nodding. Let's use my office. For the first time that afternoon, I felt a flicker of real hope. Ethan had always struck me as fair, even if he kept a little distance from day-to-day drama. Maybe he'd listen, especially once I showed him the proof of what Sophie had done. But we didn't even make it 3 steps. Sophie swooped in like a hawk. Ethan, we should go over the transition plan for my new role. And didn't you have that call with the board at 3:30? She said it all breezy-like, but the look she shot me was anything but casual. Ah, right, Ethan mumbled, checking his watch. Patricia, can this wait until tomorrow? It's about the origin of the Seattle designs, I said firmly, not backing down. Sophie's smile tightened. Actually, Ethan, that reminds me, there have been some concerns about Patricia's performance. Been meaning to discuss that with you. And just like that, the tables turned. She started laying out a messy pile of accusations, something about resource deadlines, confusion over project ownership, all vague enough to sound bad but impossible to immediately disprove. Her message was clear. I wasn't trustworthy. Ethan frowned and motioned us both into his office. Let's address this now, he said. For the next 20 minutes, I sat there, listening while Sophie ripped me apart piece by piece. She spun up doctored timelines, made it sound like I tried to steal credit for her work, referenced performance issues that had never even come up in any of my reviews. The worst part? She hinted that I'd hacked into her computer and copied her designs for Seattle. I couldn't take it anymore. That's completely untrue, I cut in, my voice shaking with anger. I have proof that. Ethan held up a hand, cutting me off. This isn't productive, he said with a weary sigh. Sophie's documented her concerns thoroughly. Given everything, and the restructuring with the new partnership, we think it's best to accelerate your departure. You're terminating me today? Without even investigating? I asked, stunned. Sophie, all business now, slid a folder across the desk. Here's your separation agreement. Standard terms. 2-month severance. You'll need to clear your desk before the end of the day. I stared down at the folder, my hands trembling. Rage and disbelief burned in my chest. And if I dispute this? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Ethan's face hardened. We have documentation of performance issues going back months, he said flatly. Fighting this would only hurt your professional reputation. And just like that, it was clear, Sophie had been setting me up for a long time. carefully twisting records, planting doubts, making sure that if this day ever came, she'd already won. I swallowed hard and nodded. I understand, I said quietly, picking up the folder. Sophie gave me a soft, fake sympathetic smile. I'll help communicate your transition to the team, she offered, sweet as poison. I left Ethan's office in a daze. As I walked down the hallway, my phone buzzed. New email. Subject: Seattle Waterfront Project, confidential. The sender wasn't anyone I recognized. Curious and a little desperate, I opened it. Inside was a goldmine, detailed plans for the next phases of the Seattle project. Budgets, timelines, list of stakeholders. Everything. And at the bottom, a short message. You should see this. Not right what they're doing to you. A friend. For a moment, I thought about forwarding it to Ethan, shoving the truth right in his face. But then it hit me. This wasn't help. It was a setup. If I shared confidential information now, after being terminated, they'd accuse me of corporate espionage. Sophie would have exactly what she needed to destroy me for good. I closed the email without replying and got back to packing. I moved methodically, boxing up my life piece by piece under the watchful eye of an HR rep. The external hard drive, the one with all my original files and proof, went into my bag first. Then came the family photos, my small collection of design awards, and the little succulent plant my daughter gave me years ago. 8 years of work, memories, and ambition, all crammed into one sad cardboard box. At reception, Emily caught me on my way out. She pulled me into a quick hug and whispered, "We all know what really happened." "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. Touch more than I could explain by her kindness. I walked out the doors without looking back. "Take care of yourself," Emily said softly. Outside, I flagged down a cab, gave the driver my address, and collapsed into the back seat. Only then did the full weight of the day hit me like a freight train. My career at Carter? Gone. My reputation? Hanging by a thread. 8 years of blood, sweat, and creativity, swiped by someone else. My phone buzzed nonstop with texts from concerned coworkers. I silenced it, needing a moment, a breath, something to keep from falling apart. The separation agreement sat heavy in my bag, like a stone I couldn't put down. 2 months' salary to buy my silence, and in return, I'd have to admit, in writing, that I hadn't measured up. It was generous if you looked at the numbers. It was an insult if you looked at the truth. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine, the red kind that promises to soften sharp edges, and flipped open my laptop. First thing, back up everything. Every scrap of evidence went onto a secure cloud account. Then I dug in, researching employment law, intellectual property rights, anything that might give me a fighting chance. I scribbled notes like a madwoman, piecing together the shape of the battle ahead. A knock at the door cut through my focus. Peeking through the peephole, I saw Ryan standing there, worry written all over him. "I came to check on you," he said when I opened the door. Everything happened so fast today. I stepped aside, letting him in, feeling a deep gratitude for not having to face this alone. "Sophie had it all planned," I said, handing him a glass of wine. "The termination. The partnership announcement. Her promotion. She orchestrated every bit of it." Ryan took a slow sip, then met my eyes. "It's worse than you think. After you left, Sophie told everyone you'd been stealing her designs for months. She even implied you were leaking confidential work to competitors." I nearly dropped my glass. "She's accusing me of exactly what she did." I choked out. Ryan nodded grimly. "She showed emails, Patricia. Messages that looked like they came from your account. Designs being sent to outside firms. That's impossible. I stopped mid-sentence as a horrible realization dawned. When were these emails supposedly sent? Ryan thought back. Last month, mostly. She had specific dates. My stomach turned. "I was on vacation in Vancouver last month," I whispered. "She had access to my computer. She could have sent them herself, using my account." Ryan's face darkened. "It makes sense, but she made it sound airtight. Even people who like you are starting to doubt." I sat down hard, feeling like the floor had vanished under me. Sophie hadn't just stolen my work and gotten me fired. She was burning the bridge behind me, making sure I couldn't even get to safety. "There's more," Ryan said hesitantly. "Word is, Morgan and Wells might hire you as a consultant after your non-compete ends." "What? Why would they?" I asked, confused. Then it clicked. "That's her insurance policy," I said bitterly. "She's setting it up to make it look like I sold my designs to them all along." Ryan nodded. "If you try to fight this, she'll spin it as proof you were dirty the whole time." After he left, I sat there in stunned silence, piecing together the intricate traps Sophie had set. She hadn't just outmaneuvered me. She'd anticipated every move I might make and set tripwires in every direction. My phone rang again, an unknown number flashing across the screen. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Miss Martinez, this is Oscar Taylor from Morgan & Wells again. I wanted to follow up on our conversation." "Mr. Taylor," I can't discuss anything related to Carter or the Seattle project, I said quickly. Actually, he continued, that's precisely why I'm calling. Our leadership team was impressed with the concepts Sophie attributed to you. We'd like to discuss a potential position. Ryan's warning echoed in my mind. The job offer wasn't a lifeline, it was a noose. I need to consider my options, I replied carefully. Can I call you next week? After hanging up, I opened my laptop again and dove into my email archive, searching 6 years' worth of correspondence with Sophie. I combed through every thread, hoping for something, anything, to crack her lies wide open. Buried deep in a folder from 3 years ago, I found it, an email chain I'd completely forgotten about. Sophie had reached out to me, asking for help on a struggling project. And in black and white, she'd written the words that could save me. Need your magic touch on this one, she'd said. The kind of innovative approach that made your coastal project such a success. Not just a thank you, not just a compliment. Proof. In her own words. Sophie herself acknowledging that the award-winning design she now claimed as hers had been mine all along. With a new fire lit under me, I spent the whole weekend piecing together my case. That email I found was just the tip of the iceberg. I dug through every corner of my old files, methodically building a timeline that showed exactly how Sophie had been stealing my work. By Sunday night, I had a full dossier ready to go, original design files stamped with metadata proving I was the creator, email threads showing how my ideas evolved, old performance reviews that completely clashed with her claims about me being inadequate, and glowing testimonials from former clients who had worked with me directly. Monday morning, I was ready to move. My plan was simple. File a formal complaint with Carter Board of Directors, lay out every piece of evidence I had, and then sit down with a lawyer to talk about my legal options. I was giving my documents one last review when a new email popped up from Ethan Carter himself. Patricia, concerning developments have emerged regarding the Seattle project. I need to speak with you immediately. Available to meet this morning. For the first time in days, I felt a little flicker of hope. Maybe Ethan had finally caught on to what Sophie had been doing. I shot back a reply and agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near the office at 10 a.m. When Ethan showed up, he looked rough. Gone was the confident boss I remembered. In his place was a tired, stressed-out man who clearly hadn't slept much. Thanks for coming, he said, getting straight to it. I'll be direct. After our announcement, the Seattle officials asked for more background on the design concepts. They were impressed, wanted to highlight the designer's process in their PR materials. I sat there, waiting, already guessing where this was headed. Sophie couldn't answer their technical questions, he went on. When they pressed her, she got cagey. One official recognized parts of the work, said it reminded him of your coastal restoration project. He asked specifically about your involvement. And what did Sophie say? I asked, already bracing myself. Ethan grimaced like the words tasted bad. She claimed you had been her mentor, that you just guided her understanding of sustainable design. I let out a bitter laugh. Mentor. After everything, she still needed to ride my coattails. I'm starting to see the bigger picture, Ethan admitted. Seattle's paused the whole project until we clear up who really created the designs. Our partnership with Morgan & Wells is hanging by a thread. Why tell me this? I asked. I'm fired, remember? He shifted uncomfortably. Sophie says you have the original design files that could settle this. She's claiming you took them when you left. The audacity was unbelievable. Even now, she was still twisting the story to trap me. I do have the original files, I said, meeting his eyes. Along with proof they're mine, not Sophie's. Ethan leaned in, looking desperate. Patricia, the firm's reputation is on the line. We need to handle this quickly and quietly. Then reinstate me, I said, not budging. Full position. Clear my record. And Sophie gets removed from anything involving my designs. Ethan shook his head immediately. That's not possible. She's already been named creative director. Then I'll take my evidence straight to the Seattle officials, I said calmly. And to the press. His face went pale. You blow up the whole firm just to get back at Sophie? I'd make sure my work gets the credit it deserves. I corrected him. If Carter takes a hit, that's on Sophie, not me. While we were sitting there, my phone buzzed. News alert. I glanced down and almost smiled. Morgan & Wells announces withdrawal from Seattle Waterfront Partnership. I turned the screen toward Ethan. His face completely fell. It's already unraveling, I said quietly. You've got one shot at controlling this before it turns into a full-blown public scandal. Ethan sat there staring into his coffee, clearly doing the math in his head. Finally, he looked up at me. What exactly do you want, Patricia? I didn't even hesitate. A public acknowledgement that the work was mine. Sophie off any project tied to my designs. And I want to present my Seattle concepts to the city officials myself. Oh, and the termination? I leaned back a little, letting it sink in. That gets wiped clean too. I hadn't made up my mind yet, but one thing was certain, I wasn't about to sign that separation agreement. Ethan gave a slow nod, looking like a man carrying the weight of a crumbling empire. I'll have to consult with the board, he muttered. But the Seattle situation can't wait. As he left, another email popped up on my screen, this one from Oscar Taylor over at Morgan & Wells. Seattle officials requesting clarification on design authorship. Would value your direct input on concepts. Before I could even digest that, another message landed, this time straight from a city planner in Seattle, asking questions about the sustainable elements in the design. While Ethan sat somewhere wringing his hands with the board, things were already spiraling out of his and Sophie's control. The very clients Sophie had once impressed with my work were now coming directly to me, the person they should have been dealing with all along. I couldn't help but smile. Sophie had spent her career riding the coattails of other people's work, but now that she had to stand on her own, her story was falling apart fast. By Tuesday morning, it felt like everything was unfolding exactly as it was meant to. After a few good conversations with Seattle officials and the executives at Morgan & Wells, we agreed to meet at Carter's office for a formal discussion about the authorship mess. I took my time getting ready that morning, picking out a sharp, no-nonsense outfit, professional but not flashy. Confidence was the look I was going for. I slipped my external hard drive loaded with evidence into my bag, along with printed copies of key documents. This time, I wasn't just ready, I was armed. When I walked into the conference room, the place went stone silent. Ethan sat stiffly at the head of the table, two board members flanking him. Across one side sat the folks from Seattle and Morgan & Wells. On the other side, Sophie sat alone, looking like she might jump out of her skin. Her usual glossy confidence had drained away, leaving only a sharp-edged nervousness. "Thank you all for coming," Ethan began, his voice a shade too formal. "We're here to address concerns regarding the Seattle waterfront project designs." Sophie, of course, rushed to seize control of the narrative. "I'd like to start by expressing my disappointment that there's been confusion surrounding my work. While Patricia contributed some initial feedback, the concepts were entirely—" I didn't let her finish. "Actually," I said, hooking my laptop to the projector, "I think it's better if I just show everyone." For the next 20 minutes, I walked them through everything, the original design files complete with timestamps, the detailed process documentation showing how the ideas evolved over time, and the knockout punch. Emails where Sophie herself credited me as the originator of various elements. "As you can see," I said, wrapping up, "these designs are my work, developed independently without Carter's authorization after Sophie repurposed elements from my coastal restoration project without giving proper credit." The Seattle officials traded glances, their expressions hardening. "These are exactly the technical details we've been asking for," one of them said sharply, turning towards Sophie. "Details you weren't able to provide." Sophie's face twisted. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "She's manipulated those timestamps. She's sabotaging me because she's jealous of my promotion." "Actually," the Morgan & Wells representative said calmly, "our technical team has already verified the metadata. These files are unquestionably original." And, Ethan added, his voice low but clear, "Our IT department has confirmed unauthorized access to Patricia's computer while she was on vacation last month." I watched as Sophie's face turned the color of old chalk. It was over, and she knew it. "Ethan, you can't seriously believe," she began, but he cut her off, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I think it's time for you to leave." Sophie's fall was swift. That afternoon she was escorted out of the building, her web of lies unraveling behind her like a ripped seam. Funny how quickly things collapse when folks finally start asking the right questions. The board met right after, moving just as decisively. Ethan, scrambling to save what was left of the firm's reputation, announced my reinstatement, with a promotion to creative director. The Seattle officials, clearly impressed with my knowledge and the originality of the concepts, formally requested that I lead the waterfront project moving forward. Maybe the sweetest moment came the next day when Ethan sent out a company-wide email, publicly recognizing my contributions to Carter's award-winning projects and making it crystal clear that the designs Sophie had tried to claim were, in fact, mine. "I underestimated you," Ethan said later when we met privately, his voice almost respectful. "You should have listened when I tried to tell you what was happening," I said, my voice steady but leaving no room for comfort. "Yeah," Ethan admitted, looking more humbled than I'd ever seen him. "I should have." I nodded, not giving him an easy out. 8 years of my work got handed off to someone else while you stood by and watched. The look on his face, regret, real and heavy, told me he finally grasped just how deep his failure ran. Fast forward a month, and there I was, standing in front of the Seattle Development Commission, presenting my polished vision for the waterfront project. The whole thing was back on track now, with Carter and Morgan & Wells working together under my leadership. This time, every contributor was properly credited, every voice heard. No more backroom deals, no more stolen ideas. Sophie, on the other hand, had become a walking warning sign in the industry. After my case blew up, 3 other designers stepped forward with their own stories about her stealing their work. Her reputation wasn't just bruised, it was shattered. Last I heard, she'd left architecture altogether. As for me, life moved into a brand new chapter. The spotlight I used to shy away from didn't seem so blinding anymore. I set up clear rules at Carter to protect design authorship, started mentoring the younger staff, and finally, saw my work recognized the way it should have been all along. Was it worth it? My daughter asked one night over dinner, the table crowded with plates and the warm hum of celebration in the air. We were toasting my first major project launch as creative director. I paused, the question sinking in deeper than she probably meant it to. My mind flicked back to Sophie's sneering words from that awful day. "You're just not cut out for this job." I smiled, the answer feeling easy now. "No," I said. "But the vindication at the end? That was definitely worth waiting for."